Good morning, Cougs. You are listening to Slice of Seattle on KUGR, Cougar College Radio. We got to interrupt the vibes just a little bit because we got to talk some Seattle sports and a little bit of Cougar sports. This is the first podcast back on the year. We're finally back in the studio. Bit of a rainy day here on the Palouse. Don't know if that's a good omen, bad omen for the start of the year, but we'll take it nonetheless. But hey, let's kick things off. Let's talk a little bit about Cougar sports. Women's soccer played last Thursday against Utah State. Ended up losing that one 1-0. Close game. I was there at that one. Played good soccer all the way through to about 20 minutes left, and then Utah State, they're just a good program, and they were ranked 7th last year. They're ranked 20th or so about this year. So, I mean, just the fact that the Cougs were able to hold on for as long as they were able to in that game is pretty impressive. So, but still, nonetheless, 1-0 loss against Utah State to open up the season. Then, of course, looking to Cougar football. Fall camp's been going on for a little bit now. We just got news yesterday that linebacker Keith Brown has suffered an injury to his left shoulder. I can't remember which shoulder it is, but he has underwent surgery, so he's not actually going to be playing this year, which is, it's a huge blow. I mean, we were kind of expecting Keith Brown to be a bit of an impact guy on the Cougs this year. He had a good year last year. So the fact that he's going to be out this year with that surgery taking him out, I mean, they're going to have to find someone else to replace him, but just definitely not the kind of news you want to hear 2 weeks ahead of the season when you're playing against Idaho for game 1. So definitely not what Jimmy Rogers was hoping for. I mean, that's just a guy you can't really afford to lose. But look, also, quarterback situation for the Cougs is yet to be resolved. I mean, kind of coming out of last year was seeming like Zevi Eckhouse was going to be the front runner for that starting quarterback position, but then, of course, you got Jackson Potter coming in. You got Julian Duggar from Pittsburgh when he transferred in. And also you got Johnny Shepard from Rutgers. I mean, those are just like 3 quality quarterbacks who can all compete from that spot. And Jimmy Rogers has made it pretty clear that, no spots are given. There are no spots that are grandfathered in that, like, you are going to get this spot at all. It's 100% competition. And from what I've been hearing from guys who are close with the football team, it sounds like Zevi Eckhouse might not be the starting quarterback for day one. I mean, definitely he's got just so much competition around him now. It's going to be hard to see if he will, really be the starting quarterback. The other thing I'm hearing too is that Jimmy Rogers is probably going to wait until that week before game day or even that night before game day before he really announces who the starting quarterback is going to be. Like, that's just how much he's taking this seriously in terms of that competition and that no spots are given. It's all earned. Play on the field 100% determines who's going to be the starting quarterback for the Cougs. Nonetheless, though, I'm pumped. That's going to be a super fun home opener against Idaho. Look, there are so many good home Coug games this year. You got the University of Idaho game. You got the Apple Cup here in Pullman. You got men's basketball playing against UW here in Pullman. Women's volleyball is playing against UW. This is like, if you are on the Palouse at all this year, there's going to be a good home game to go watch. There's just a ton right now. So just come out to the Palouse. If you're ever here in town, go watch some of these games. There's just so many good games this year. So I'm super pumped for it. I got my sports pass. I'm going to be probably going to as many as I possibly can. Yeah, that's pretty much all the news for the Cougs. Let's switch. Let's talk about the Mariners. Look, the Mariners have been so incredibly hot. And I know a lot of people are going to say, like, well, what about that Baltimore series? You dropped 2 of 3 against Baltimore, who have been awful. Right? Like, considering the amount of talent that Baltimore has on that roster, the amount of young guys they have, and how well they've done the years prior, like the last few years, for how bad they're playing this year, you'd think you'd come in and kind of beat up on them, especially considering that the Mariners have been just one of the hottest teams in baseball so far. But look, there are just some bad teams that just have your number. They swept us at home earlier this year, right? Like, I was listening to Lyle on Seattle Sports 710. He's one of the hosts of the Marine Lair podcast, and he brought up a good point. The Angels are 6-0 against the Dodgers this year. There are just some bad teams that just have good teams' numbers. And for the Mariners, apparently it's the Orioles, because they just, for some reason, find ways to just sneak wins out on us. But nonetheless, then the Mariners head up to Citi Field in New York to play against the Mets last night, picking up an 11-9 win. And I mean, that's like the biggest jump between what you were doing in Baltimore, like just anemic kind of levels of offense. Like, you just only picking up 1-2 runs a game, to then putting up an 11 spot in that game. In that game, I was sitting down watching that, and I was like, just pulling my hair out at some points, because it was just constantly both teams going back and forth scoring runs. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was a fun game to watch, but still, just that's like the epitome of a Mariners win right there. Just a weird game to be at. But during that game last night, Cal Raleigh gets out of his slump a little bit and was able to do this.
And there's a good head start. Cal Raleigh to left field. No doubter. Second deck, and there it goes, 46. Only one catcher has hit more home runs in a season than Cal Raleigh.
Cal Raleigh, number 46 on the year. I mean, he has just been electric. I mean, with that home run, he's, I think, the second all-time home runs in a season for catchers so far. So, I mean, he's just been, and don't get me wrong, the past few games, he's been just kind of in a slump. There were just games where he was having 0 for 5 strikeouts. Seemed like he was going to really cool off a little bit. That was probably going to hurt his AL MVP hopes. But picks up number 46, still ahead. He's still ahead for the home run lead by a pretty good margin too. So, and the other thing too, it's not just home runs. Last night he was able to do this, picked up a double, and then Julio able to back him up.
Cal Raleigh going to lead things off.
2-2, fly ball right center, feeling deep, going, and this one is off the fence. Cal heading for second, just missed number 47 on the year from the left side of the plate. And he leads off the top of the 8th inning like he led off the 7th with a double.
Rodriguez, an RBI double in the first, struck out his 3 subsequent at-bats.
Drive deep into right field. Soto going back, and this one is off the base of the fence. Kicks away from Soto. Cal Raleigh rounding third. He will score. Julio on at second base with an RBI double, back-to-back doubles. And the Mariners add on and now lead the Mets 11-6.
So when I was telling you that, adding Gino and Naylor to this lineup just makes it so that you got guys ahead of each other who can hit each other in, pick up RBIs, get runners on, and then get them in, that's what I'm talking about right there. I mean, granted, Cal and Julio have been here all year, but still, when you get a lineup that's hot and that can hit, you got guys like Cal Raleigh who can pick up a double, get on second base, immediately in scoring position, and then Julio Rodriguez right behind him who can pick up a double and score him. Stuff like that is fun to watch, and that's just like the epitome of this new lineup with Naylor, with Gino. And granted, let me tell you, Naylor hasn't been, the most hot player. I feel like he's cooled down the past few games. Gino has been not hot at all. I mean, he's been, when I've been paying attention to the sports world, everyone keeps saying that he's a bit of a bust. I wouldn't say he's a bit of a bust. I think he's just a little cold right now. I think he's going to heat up probably in September and into October. I think right now is all these guys are going to hit these little cold stretches that they're in, like Cal. Hit that little cold stretch right now, right? If you, just recently. And now he's starting to get out of it again. Hit number 46 on the year. Had that double. He had 2 doubles in yesterday's game. That's the thing, too. That was the thing that was worrying me about Cal and the MVP hopes and everything was that, yeah, he's leading the league in home runs and everything. That's kind of all he was doing. Like, he was kind of only hitting home runs. And he wasn't really able to do anything else. It was either he hit a home run or he struck out. And that was really concerning to me because I was thinking you got other guys like Judge who are way more competent in being able to hit with runners in scoring position, pick up doubles, pick up clutch singles, stuff like that. But when I see stuff like that, 2 doubles in a day plus a homer, that's telling me Cal Raleigh might be a little bit more MVP material than I'm thinking. But look, Mariners have got 3 main guys who are still banged up at the moment, but who are primed to making their returns. You got Bryce Miller, you got Luke Raley, and you got Victor Robles. Bryce Miller, and I probably haven't harped on this on the show yet. I've written an article about it in the Daily Evergreen. If you don't read the Daily Evergreen, you can access it online. It's the Wazoo student paper. I am the sports editor for that. Bryce Miller, I think if he makes his return, he's had a couple rehab starts with the Tacoma Rainiers. I think if they bring back Bryce Miller, it should be in the back half of the bullpen, or at least in the middle part of the bullpen. I think that, don't get me wrong, Bryce Miller, phenomenal starting pitcher, and he's been good for the Mariners, and he's done great things last year. Last year, he was one of the best starting pitchers on this rotation, if not the best starting pitcher in this rotation last year. Is that true this year? Absolutely not. He has not been that good of a starting pitcher this year. I think his pitch count has been way down. His velocity has dipped later on in the ball games. His control has definitely been an issue later in ball games. Just looking at this first half of the season when he started to get hurt, I think if you want to get the best out of Bryce Miller, you want him to be the most impact guy in that bullpen, you move him to the middle part of the bullpen, right? The transition guy, right after your starter gets done, right? Imagine games where you got Luis Castillo, Brian Wu, Logan Gilbert, George Kirby, Logan Evans going 5 to 6 innings, right? And they're finally out of the game. The other team, they're thinking, man, finally get to the middle part of the bullpen. You get these top 20 pitchers in the league out of the way, right? And then they have to face Bryce Miller immediately afterwards. You know how mentally draining that is? You can break a team that way. To have some of the best pitchers in the league start out that ball game and then have another one of the best pitchers in the league be the middle part of your bullpen, right? And then after they're done finishing Bryce Miller, guess who they have to face next? They have to face Matt Brash. They have to face Andres Munoz. Like, that is just a killer, like, just series of pitchers you got to face. So, and I think that would work with his constraints that he's having this year. Pitch count. He hasn't been able to go above a certain amount of pitches. His control and his velocity have dipped as he's gone later in the ball games. So I think if you just hold on to him for about maybe 1 to 2 innings in every other ball game, right? I'm not saying that you don't have some of your other middle relievers like Vargas, like Bizzardo, like Umina, like Kowar. You don't have some of these other guys come in too. I think you just need to sprinkle Bryce Miller in every now and then in a clutch game where you need a leverage arm in the middle part of your bullpen to be able to get to that 8th and 9th inning. I think that is like a perfect spot for him to sit in. And I'm not saying that that's permanent. I'm not saying that Bryce Miller is forever going to be a bullpen pitcher now. No, he's not going to be a relief guy forever. I think for this year, for this stretch from maybe if he comes back in late August, September, and then into playoffs, that's how you should use him, right? For this short sample size you're going to get with him for this last little back half of the season, possibly into playoffs if we are able to track down the Astros, if we hold on to our wild card spot. This last little stretch is where I think you could definitely use him as a relief arm, and you can get the most out of him for what his constraints are. So that's what I'll say for Bryce Miller. Definitely, if the Mariners use him as a relief arm, I think that they are making the right choice for what he's bringing to the table so far. Looking at Luke Raley, Victor Robles. Look, I love Luke Raley. Hustle guy, incredibly athletic for his size. Like, he's just that sneaky kind of athlete. You would never expect him to be that fast, yet somehow he's quick and he can play right field. He can play first base. He's a guy, he's just a valuable player. But do I think that there is necessarily a spot for him on this team? Possibly. I think that there might be I don't know what we're doing with Donovan Solano. If you want to talk about a guy who doesn't have very much versatility, Donovan Solano has essentially no versatility. He's a first baseman only, not that athletic, not that fast. The bat is not there, hasn't been there this year, consistently at least. He's about as consistent as Demo is, right? Like, every now and then, all of a sudden, wow, he has a great game, but then he just stinks for like the next month, right? I think if you want to have a guy who can be your alternate first baseman, you could have Luke Raley. The problem with that is Luke Raley is also a lefty, and so is Josh Naylor. So then that opens up the question too. If you want to be able to platoon guys, do you hold on to Donovan Solano? So Luke Raley just doesn't seem to have a spot on this team. And the same thing for the platoon opportunity for right field. Dominic Canzone has been a far better hitter than Luke Raley has been this year. That's just a fact. He's just been better. He's just been more consistent. Has more power. But they're both left-handed batters. Now, if Luke Raley was a right-handed batter, this is a completely different conversation. I say all day, have Luke Raley on the lineup because you can platoon him with guys like Josh Naylor and Dominic Canzone, right? Like, that makes sense. But they're all left-handed hitters. So it just doesn't make sense to hold on to another guy like Raley when you got guys like Dominic Canzone and Josh Naylor who are just better, right? Josh Naylor obviously is way better than Luke Raley. Dominic Canzone is a little bit better than Luke Raley, but still, at the end of the day, Luke Raley, where's the spot for him on this lineup? I just don't see it, really. So that doesn't mean I think we should get rid of Luke Raley. I'm sure we can find some spot for him if we hold on to him. But definitely, I think, if I'm Luke Raley right now, I'm kind of I'm worrying for my spot a little bit because I don't know if I fit on this Mariners roster anymore. And then, of course, Victor Robles, going back to this platoon opportunity, if we're going to platoon someone in right field, Victor Robles, righty batter, Dominic Canzone, lefty batter, that's a great platoon opportunity. And Victor Robles seems to be getting on the road to recovery. I think he's making his Tacoma Rainiers debut here in a bit, or he has, but regardless, he's getting close. Probably by the end of August, I would say we might see Victor Robles back in a Mariners uniform on the field. And he's still a competent hitter. I think people forget that he's a good hitter. Not amazing. He's about as good as what Dominic Canzone can be. And that's why that platoon opportunity could be very useful as we get into September and then into October, right? So if he gets healthy, he comes back, you platoon him with Dominic Canzone. Because again, Victor Robles can really only play right field or maybe left field, maybe center field. He can play in the outfield, basically. But that platoon opportunity is just for him and Dominic Canzone. So those are those three guys who right now who are injured, and they are when they're coming back, what's their role going to be? How are they going to fit into this Mariners roster right now, which is one of the hottest rosters in all of baseball right now? It's hard. It's hard to try and get people into this roster when they're doing so well. You don't want to, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, And then that also leaves the question open for what are you going to do with Dylan Moore? Don't get me wrong. I love Dylan Moore. Dylan Moore is absolutely, he's a Gold Glove defensive guy, right? He's a utility man. He plays. I was looking at his stats. Last year, he played every single position except pitcher and catcher. And that's a fact. He played everywhere. Every single spot on the field. He's about as versatile as you can possibly get. Now, at the plate, not so much. The plate has been a big question mark. He's just not consistent. He's like a Donovan Solano. He has a game where he just balls out of his mind, and then for the next month, can't hit a baseball. So, do I see a major role for Dylan Moore in the future? Probably not. He's probably a guy who you could get some value for if you wanted to trade him, or if I don't think that I think Dylan Moore is looking at his last season as a Mariner, or, it's just his last days as a Mariner, which is sad. I like Dylan Moore. He was fun to watch, but just he's not winning material, right? If we keep him on this team, he's not necessarily going to be someone who's going to help us win this series. But looking ahead, we got the Mariners playing against the Mets again tonight, and then they are playing against the Mets in the Little League Classic, which should be fun. Bonnie Lake is in Little League World Series this year. Connor Simmons, who's not in the booth today, is from Bonnie Lake, so I've been talking with him about that a lot. Should be really exciting. If you're not watching the Little League World Series, you definitely should. It's a lot of fun, and the Little League Classic should be super fun to watch as well. Look, the Mets have been awful. They've been awful this year. One of, just especially in this stretch right here, they've just been absolutely terrible. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's that they're terrible. It's more that they are just, feels like they are just vexed. They are just like someone put a jinx on them, and they just have yet to break it. You look at yesterday's game. Luis Castillo got shelled in that game. Francisco Lindor had 2 home runs off him, right? I was watching that game, and it's been a long time since I've seen Mariners pitching get lit up like that. Starting pitching, at least. Maybe your middle relievers, right? But not your starting guys. It was just home run after home run. It was just brutal. So watching that, I was thinking, man, we are just going to get absolutely crushed by the Mets. But the Mets just kind of systematically fell apart. And that just kind of seems to be what they're doing this year. So do I think the Mariners are going to sweep the Mets this series? 1,000%. I 1,000% think so. If there was a team that you could sweep, it is the criminally unlucky Mets, at least in this time of the season. Like, this is a perfect season to pick up wins and chase down the Astros. Because, I mean, if there's any team that is incapable of winning games right now, it'll be the Mets. So I'm looking for the sweep. If they don't get a sweep, if they drop even one of these games, I mean, consider this series basically a failure, right? If you come into New York and you don't sweep the Mets in this condition that they are in, that's just a big, F on the entire weekend. So I know that's a bit of a high bar, but at the end of the day, this is what I'm expecting now from the Mariners. When you pick up Eugenio and you pick up Naylor at the trade deadline, and you've built a roster that is capable of scoring runs, if you can't beat a team like the Mets, I think that's, I don't know what to expect from you. But yeah, that's it for the Mariners. We're going to move into the Seahawks. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. You're listening to Slice of Seattle on KUGR. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Slice of Seattle on KUGR Cougar College Radio.
Welcome back, everybody. We are talking Seahawks now for the last half of the show. Look, preseason game against the Chiefs last night. I believe the score was somewhere around 33-17. An absolutely great game. And it started off with a monster drive, which ended with this.
Hands it off to Charbonnet, and he's going to go in untouched. Touchdown, Seahawks. Zach Charbonnet all the way to the house.
So, look, that drive was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. I will say, my TV started recording that game after that drive, so when I tuned in, it was already 7-0 Seahawks, and I was like, oh, what happened? I had to look and saw that was a touchdown from Zach Charbonnet. Let me tell you, there is no one who loves Zach Charbonnet more than I do. I am a certified Zach Charbonnet lover. I do know he's not as good as Kenneth Walker III, but still, I think he's super fun to watch, and he's just such a quality backup running back that, like, I say backup running back, second string running back. He had so many good games last year that he can go toe-to-toe with Kenneth Walker. I 1,000% think that. That's just fun to watch. And that's where, like, having Gray Zabel, having a strong O-line. We ran the ball so much yesterday. Like, it was just, like, warmed my heart, where I was just like, this is what it's all about, man. Like, it's such good run game. O-line was creating holes for him, for Charbonnet, our other running backs, to be able to run. Just a good running game wins you games, and that's what happened right there. Put up 33 points in that game. I mean, that's just amazing. And going back to that first drive by the Seahawks was just like a piece of art. It was so fun to watch. And the other thing too is you're seeing Sam Darnold and Cooper Kupp for the first time. So don't get me wrong, I love that Raiders preseason game, but the problem with that preseason game was you didn't see Sam Darnold. You didn't see Cooper Kupp. I don't think JSN played in that first preseason game, but you got to see all three of those guys in the very first drive of this game. You got to see JSN. You got to see Cooper Kupp. You got to see Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold's looking pretty tight. I know that was basically the only drive he played that whole game, but still, he's looking good. Because that was the number one question mark I had, where I was taking everything in that first preseason game with a grain of salt. Is like, sure, you didn't see Sam Darnold play. And Mike McDonald has been pretty open about the fact that Sam Darnold is going to be our day one quarterback. It's not going to be Drew Lock. It's not going to be Jalen Milroe. That's not a competition. It's going to be Sam Darnold. And so I know a lot of people, part of the reason why the Seahawks have been like criminally underrated this year is because Sam Darnold is going to be our day one quarterback, and people have like no faith in him. I'm not saying that after that first drive I'm on the Sam Darnold bandwagon. I don't think he's going to be like, it's not going to be like a Geno situation where we're going to revive his career. Do I think he's going to be a competent quarterback for us? Well, looking at that first drive of that game, yeah, I think he will. And of course, people always bring up in preseason that's like, well, you're playing all the backup D-line guys, all the backups for every single position, so obviously you're going to look a little bit better. But so are we. For most of that game, we're playing a lot of our backups, and we still managed to pull out just a great win against a good team too. I know Patrick Mahomes wasn't playing that game. Who cares? Gardner Minshew was former Coug legend, who is now the backup quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs, which is, if there's a worse place to be a backup quarterback, I think it's got to be Kansas City, because you basically will just never touch the field because Patrick Mahomes. That's like the whole reason. It's just you're never going to get onto the field. So I feel bad for Gardner Minshew. He's kind of in quarterback purgatory there in Kansas City, which kind of sucks for him. But still, hey, preseason, that's where he gets the ball out, and he did a pretty decent job. Defense for the Seahawks, just locked down. I mean, they picked up a safety early in that game. I think a large part of the reason why the Seahawks have been so underrated this year is because I don't think defense gets enough props. I mean, I might have talked about this earlier in one of my previous episodes, but when you think about like fantasy football, right? When you're drafting players, you draft offensive guys individually. You draft your wide receivers individually. You draft your tight ends. You draft your quarterbacks, your running backs, right? That's who you're paying attention to 24/7, right? You're paying attention to what your quarterback did, what your running back did, what your tight end did. But in fantasy football, you draft the defense as a whole for the entire team. You're not drafting cornerbacks. You're not drafting safeties or linebackers. You're not drafting those guys individually. You're drafting the whole team. So I think the individual guys, those impact guys, those guys who apply the pressure, who are able to break up those passes, those names get kind of lost in the fold. So when you put together a defense as good as the Seahawks have, it becomes easy when you have an offense that is lackluster would be the word I'd use. It's not a dominant offense. Sam Darnold and Cooper Kupp, basically the two main additions you made, are not necessarily gonna be not making you like a top tier offense in the league. You're probably middle of the pack, about average, right? So you have an average offense, a phenomenal defense, but that average offense is why you get so underrated. Why people don't expect you to do that much. Do I think that this preseason game changed a lot of people's minds? 1,000% against a Super Bowl caliber team. And granted, you're playing against their backups, but still, you're playing against the backups on a Super Bowl caliber team. So the fact that we were able to put up that's a bit of a statement win against a good team with good backups. And we were playing our backups too. Arroyo was looking really good. I think he got a couple catches in that game as well. JSN, I know he only played a little bit, but he was looking pretty solid. Cooper Kupp's looking good. Jalen Milroe, man, let me tell you, Jalen Milroe, he can move. He's just athletic. He's just an athletic quarterback. Just a bit, he's mobile. Don't get me wrong, the arm isn't necessarily 100% there, but I wouldn't be too worried about that. I think the arm will develop. His arm won't be that big of a problem. And from what I'm hearing after that first preseason game, it seems like the Seahawks are gonna possibly lean on him during the year for almost like a few games to come in and run some plays, do some running plays, do some options, like just use his legs. And then once you've used that a couple of times, use him as a decoy. There's so much potential there to use him and Darnold together that I think that when you pair them, there's going to be a deadly duo. And then of course that leaves the question of what are you going to do with Drew Lock? I love Drew Lock. Drew Lock to me is like the Dylan Moore of the Seattle Seahawks. He's a competent backup. He can come in. He's got an okay ceiling, but the floor is just so low. Like he's just not a starting quarterback. And he had his moment in the sun, year or so ago. Had that win against the Eagles, I think the year before last when they won the Super Bowl last year. So everyone was joking that basically we are Super Bowl champions because we beat the Eagles the year before. But anyway, Drew Lock he's the Dylan Moore of this team. He's good, but there's just not a role for him. I just don't see it. I mean, you keep him on in case Darnold gets hurt or Milroe gets hurt or something like that. He's a good to have depth at that position maybe, but I just don't see a starting spot for him at all. So I understand though that's why they're throwing him out in the preseason games and having him be the starter for that. Makes sense, but still, Drew Lock, man, fan favorite, but just not. He just can't quite get it done on the field for those kind of big moments like that. But still, I'm not going to sit here and look at this one preseason game and think that the Seahawks are going to be, that like we're going far in the playoffs and we're going to be Super Bowl champions or anything like that. Again, it's preseason. We're playing our backups. They're playing their backups. A lot of stuff can go wrong. It's a one-game sample size. So I'm going to take it with a grain of salt. Still, at the end of the day, you can't deny the Seahawks are looking tight. They're looking good. Offense is clicking. The defense is just locked down. I mean, obviously nothing's ever going to compare to the Legion of Boom. That's something that's just incredibly special, but I'm liking Mike Macdonald's the defense approach he's brought to this team. He was a defensive coordinator for the Ravens. It feels like he's really brought in that edge to the Seahawks too. And yeah, I'm excited to see Mike Macdonald year 2, right? Year 1 was good. Year 1, I know we didn't make playoffs, but still, the bones, the structure of that team was good. And Mike Macdonald is just a good coach. He's no nonsense. He gets to the point. You know, it's such a culture change from Pete Carroll. Let me tell you, seeing Pete Carroll with the Raiders is just reminding me that, like, man, Pete Carroll was just a tornado of a human being who just was bringing passion to every single moment of every single day of every single practice of everything. And Mike Macdonald isn't quite that, but, you know, maybe that's not what this team needs. Maybe we need a Mike Macdonald. Maybe we need a bit of a calmer guy, right? But, yeah, man, Seahawks just looking real good this year. Real good. I'm excited for the start of the season. I believe the first game of the year is against the 49ers. I don't know how good the 49ers are going to be this year. So if you want to set the tone for the year against a division rival, against a West Coast rival, against San Francisco, just go out and just punch them in the mouth. And with that, looking at that first drive, just running the ball up the gut, just over and over again, that's punch you in the mouth football. And I think that the Seahawks come out day one against the San Francisco San Francisco 49ers, and just have some punch you in the mouth football. Just run the ball, and run the ball. I think it's going to be a fun game to watch. But yeah, that's going to do it for the Seahawks. Don't have any Kraken news. Been, quiet off season after the free agency finished up. Picked up Marchment, picked up Lindgren, Matt Murray, and net. Not a bunch of news. The season's getting closer, and look, that opening night, I think against Anaheim, is gonna be a fun game to watch. I'm itching for some Kraken hockey, man. I've been missing Johnny Forsland on the radio with Eddie Olczyk. I mean, it's just, I need to get my fix, man. One way or another. I'm just looking forward to that. But yeah, that's gonna do it. The first episode of the year for the Slice of Seattle, back in the studio here in KUGR. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll be back on next week again. Hopefully we get some of our returning guests back on, ideally the Connors. But that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember, it is a great day to have a great day. And go Cougs.